You're about to discover something extraordinary that's been hidden in plain sight your entire life, a force so powerful that once you understand how to harness it, everything you've ever wanted becomes not just possible, but inevitable. The masters of success throughout history have known this secret. They've used it to build empires, influence millions, and shape the very fabric of reality around them. William Walker Atkinson revealed this ancient knowledge in Mental Fascination, and what you're about to learn will fundamentally transform how you see yourself and your place in this world. Think about the people who seem to glide through life with an invisible magnetism, drawing opportunities, relationships, and success toward them like moths to a flame. You've seen them, maybe you've envied them, wondering what they possess that you don't. The truth is simpler and more empowering than you could imagine. They've tapped into a mental power that exists within every human being, a power that you already possess but haven't yet learned to direct with intention and precision. This isn't about luck or genetics or being born into privilege. This is about understanding the mechanics of mental influence and learning to project your consciousness in ways that create tangible results in the physical world. Let me share something that happened to a young clerk working in a Chicago department store back in the early 20th century. His name was James, and he was utterly forgettable in every conventional sense. Average height, average looks, average education, working an average job for average pay. He blended into the background so completely that his own manager sometimes forgot his name. But James stumbled upon these principles of mental fascination, and within 6 months, everything changed. Customers began asking specifically for him. His sales numbers tripled, then quadrupled. The store owner noticed and promoted him. Within 2 years, James was managing his own department. Within 5, he owned a competing store. Within 10, he had built a retail empire that spanned 3 states. What changed? Not his appearance, not his background, not his circumstances. What changed was his understanding of how to project mental influence, how to make people feel drawn to him without understanding why, how to create an invisible field of attraction that pulled success into his orbit. The foundation of mental fascination rests on a simple but profound truth that most people never grasp. Your mind is not contained within your skull. Your thoughts are not private, internal events that only you experience. Consciousness itself is a radiating force, broadcasting continuously into the space around you, affecting everyone and everything within range. Right now, as you absorb these words, your mind is sending out waves of mental energy that touch every person you encounter, every situation you face, every opportunity that crosses your path. The question isn't whether you're influencing the world around you. The question is whether you're doing it consciously or unconsciously, with purpose or by accident, in ways that serve your goals or undermine them. Most people stumble through life broadcasting mental static, a confused jumble of contradictory thoughts, unexamined fears, unconscious limitations, and scattered desires. They wonder why their lives feel chaotic, why opportunities slip through their fingers, why people seem indifferent or even resistant to them. They don't realize they're pushing away the very things they claim to want, because their mental broadcasts are sending signals of doubt, unworthiness, confusion, and limitation. The universe, you see, doesn't respond to what you say you want. It responds to what you genuinely believe and mentally radiate. When you learn to control and direct your mental broadcasts with clarity and power, you become a center of attraction that draws circumstances, people, and resources toward your intended outcomes. Consider how a radio transmitter works. It takes a signal and broadcasts it through the air, and anyone with a receiver tuned to the right frequency picks up that signal clearly. Your mind operates on precisely the same principle, except far more powerfully because mental vibrations affect reality directly, not through mechanical intermediaries. When you think with focus and emotional intensity, You're broadcasting on a frequency that others unconsciously tune into. They may not hear your thoughts in words, but they feel the vibration, the energy, the quality of your mental state. Someone radiating confidence feels entirely different to be around than someone radiating anxiety, even if neither speaks a word. Someone mentally projecting expectation of success creates a different field than someone mentally rehearsing failure, and people unconsciously respond to these fields, adjusting their behavior, their offers, their treatment of you based on signals they can't even consciously detect. The first step in developing mental fascination involves cleaning up your mental broadcast, eliminating the static and interference that weakens your signal. This means becoming ruthlessly aware of your habitual thought patterns, the loops that play in your mind without conscious direction. For most people, this is a shocking revelation because they've never truly observed their own thinking. They assume they're in control of their minds when actually their minds run on autopilot most of the time, recycling old fears, replaying past failures, anticipating problems that never arrive, generating anxiety about hypothetical futures. This mental noise doesn't just make you feel bad, it broadcasts weakness and confusion into your environment, causing people to unconsciously dismiss you, overlook you, or avoid you without knowing why. Start paying attention to the conversation happening in your head right now. What's the tone? Is it encouraging or critical? Is it focused on possibilities or limitations? Is it rehearsing success or anticipating failure? Most importantly, is it intentional or automatic? The untrained mind operates like a radio stuck on a random station, playing whatever happens to come through. The trained mind operates like a precision transmitter, broadcasting exactly the signal you choose with clarity and power. This training doesn't happen overnight, but it begins the moment you decide to take conscious control of your mental atmosphere. Every thought you think carries an emotional charge, and that charge determines the power of your mental broadcast. A thought accompanied by strong emotion radiates far more powerfully than a cold, intellectual concept. This explains why passionate people often achieve outsized results even when they lack conventional advantages. Their mental broadcasts carry such intensity that they affect everyone around them, creating enthusiasm, opening doors, generating opportunities that simply don't appear for people thinking the same thoughts with lukewarm feeling. But here's the crucial insight that most people miss. You can deliberately cultivate the emotional charge you attach to your thoughts. You're not at the mercy of whatever feelings happen to arise. You can choose to feel enthusiastic about your goals, confident in your abilities, certain of your eventual success, and that choice amplifies your mental broadcast exponentially. Think about someone trying to sell you something they don't believe in versus someone offering something they genuinely love. You feel the difference immediately, even if their words are similar. The first person's mental broadcast says, "I'm just going through the motions," while the second radiates conviction and enthusiasm. Which one influences you more? The same dynamic operates in every interaction you have, whether you're interviewing for a job, meeting potential friends, negotiating a deal, or simply walking into a room full of strangers. Your mental broadcast either draws people toward you or repels them, and learning to consciously control that broadcast gives you an almost unfair advantage in every area of life. There was a woman named Sarah who worked as a teacher in a difficult inner-city school. The students were hostile, disengaged, many dealing with trauma and hardship that made learning feel irrelevant. Sarah struggled for months, trying every conventional technique she'd learned in her training. Nothing worked. The students mocked her, ignored her, made her dread each day. Then she discovered these principles of mental fascination and decided to try something different. Instead of walking into class worried about discipline problems and student resistance, She spent 15 minutes before each class deliberately cultivating a mental state of calm authority and genuine care. She visualized her students as capable, intelligent, worthy of respect. She imagined successful lessons where students participated eagerly. She felt, as vividly as possible, the satisfaction of connecting with these young people and making a real difference in their lives. The shift didn't happen instantly, but it happened noticeably. Within a week, the worst troublemakers had calmed down. Within a month, students were volunteering answers and staying after class to ask questions. By the end of the semester, Sarah's classroom had become the most engaged in the school. Other teachers asked her what techniques she'd implemented, what new curriculum she'd adopted. But there were no new techniques or curriculum. The only thing that changed was her mental broadcast. She stopped radiating anxiety and expectation of failure. She started broadcasting calm confidence and genuine belief in her students' potential, and her students, like everyone else, unconsciously responded to that shift in mental atmosphere. This brings us to one of the most practical applications of mental fascination, what Atkinson called the mental demand. This technique involves directing focused mental energy toward a specific person or outcome with the clear intention of influencing the situation in your favor. Before you recoil from this as manipulation, understand that you're already doing this unconsciously all the time. Every time you hope someone will like you, you're attempting mental influence. Every time you want to convince someone of your viewpoint, you're trying to affect their mental state. The only question is whether you do this weakly and haphazardly or powerfully and effectively. The mental demand works through a simple process that requires practice to master. First, clarify exactly what you want from the situation. Vague desires produce vague results. If you want someone to hire you, be specific. If you want to close a sale, know exactly what outcome you're seeking. If you want to repair a relationship, define what reconciliation looks like. Second, visualize the outcome as already accomplished. See the handshake after you're hired, feel the satisfaction of the signed contract, experience the warmth of the reconciled relationship. Make this visualization as vivid and detailed as possible, engaging all your senses and emotions. Third, maintain absolute confidence that this outcome is not just possible but natural and inevitable. Any doubt weakens your mental broadcast, introducing static into your signal. Fourth, release the demand without anxiety or attachment to timing. Send out your mental energy like an arrow shot toward a target, then trust that it will arrive without constantly checking whether it's there yet. Around 10 minutes into this journey of understanding mental fascination, you might be wondering how this differs from simple positive thinking or wishful fantasy. The difference is enormous and worth examining carefully. Positive thinking often amounts to little more than denying reality or repeating affirmations without genuine conviction. It's a mental layer applied over deeper beliefs that contradict it, like painting over rust without treating the corrosion underneath. Mental fascination goes deeper, working at the level of your core beliefs and habitual mental atmosphere. It's not about pretending everything is fine when it isn't. It's about fundamentally shifting your mental broadcast from one frequency to another, from limitation to possibility, from doubt to certainty, from scarcity to abundance. If you're finding value in these insights, if something in these principles resonates with the truth you've always suspected about the power of your own mind, please consider liking and subscribing to Audiobook Library. Your support helps this channel grow and reach others who are ready for this knowledge, people who are tired of conventional limitations and hungry for the tools that actually create real transformation. Every like, every subscription, every share extends the reach of these life-changing ideas to someone who desperately needs them. Let's explore another dimension of mental fascination, the concept of the mental atmosphere you create around yourself. Imagine walking into a party where everyone seems tense and uncomfortable. You feel that atmosphere immediately. even though no one has said anything to you. Now imagine walking into a gathering where everyone is relaxed and enjoying themselves. Again, you feel it instantly. These atmospheres are created by the collective mental broadcasts of the people present, and they affect your own mental state whether you realize it or not. But here's the powerful part. A strong individual mental broadcast can transform an entire room's atmosphere. One genuinely confident, warm, enthusiastic person can shift a gathering from awkward to enjoyable. One anxious, critical, negative person can drain the energy from a celebration. You are constantly generating a mental atmosphere around yourself, and people unconsciously decide how to treat you based on that atmosphere. Someone radiating an atmosphere of competence and authority gets treated with respect. Someone radiating uncertainty and weakness gets dismissed or taken advantage of. Someone radiating warmth and openness attracts friendship. Someone radiating suspicion and defensiveness repels connection. The extraordinary news is that you can consciously cultivate whatever mental atmosphere serves your purposes. If you want respect, generate an atmosphere of quiet confidence and competent authority. If you want friendship, radiate genuine interest in others and warm openness. If you want romantic attraction, cultivate an atmosphere of relaxed self-assurance and passionate engagement with life. There was a man named Robert who worked in sales and consistently ranked at the bottom of his company's performance charts. He had the same training as his colleagues, the same product knowledge, the same territory, yet somehow his results lagged dramatically. His manager assumed he was lazy or incompetent, but Robert actually worked harder than most of his peers, making more calls, following up more persistently, studying product information more thoroughly. The problem wasn't his work ethic or knowledge. The problem was his mental atmosphere. Robert unconsciously radiated desperation and fear of rejection. Potential customers felt this atmosphere before Robert said a word, and it made them uncomfortable, suspicious, eager to end the conversation. Robert was sabotaging himself with his own mental broadcast. When Robert learned about mental fascination, he began working deliberately on his mental atmosphere. Before each sales call, he spent a few minutes cultivating a mental state of calm confidence, genuine desire to help the customer, and complete absence of attachment to whether they bought or not. This last part was crucial because desperation repels while relaxed confidence attracts. Robert practiced feeling successful regardless of any individual sale, knowing that some people would buy and others wouldn't, and either outcome was perfectly fine. This shift in mental atmosphere transformed his results. Within 3 months, Robert had moved from the bottom of the performance rankings to the top. He was making fewer calls than before, but closing more sales because his mental broadcast had shifted from desperation to assured helpfulness. The principle of mental contagion explains why your mental state affects others so powerfully. Emotions and mental states are literally contagious, spreading from person to person through unconscious mental connection. You've experienced this countless times without recognizing the mechanism. Someone walks into a room in a foul mood, and within minutes everyone feels a bit worse. Someone brings infectious enthusiasm to a project, and the whole team's energy lifts. This isn't coincidence or psychology in the conventional sense. This is mental energy transferring from one consciousness to another through the invisible but very real connections that link all minds. Once you understand mental contagion, you realize you have a responsibility and an opportunity. The responsibility is to maintain your own mental state at a high level because you're affecting everyone around you constantly. When you're anxious, you're spreading anxiety. When you're confident, you're spreading confidence. When you're critical, you're spreading negativity. When you're appreciative, you're spreading positivity. The opportunity is that you can deliberately use mental contagion to influence situations in constructive ways. Walking into a tense meeting and radiating calm assurance, you can literally shift the room's mental atmosphere. Interacting with an angry person while maintaining your own mental state of patient understanding, you can diffuse their anger through mental contagion of your calmness. This requires strength of mind that most people haven't developed because they allow their mental states to be determined by external circumstances and other people's moods. Someone criticizes them and they feel bad. Someone ignores them and they feel unworthy. The economy struggles and they feel anxious. The news reports tragedy and they feel depressed. They're like leaves blown by whatever wind happens to pass, with no internal anchor or self-determined mental atmosphere. Developing mental fascination means cultivating such a strong, deliberately maintained mental state that external circumstances and other people's moods don't knock you off center. You become like a mountain that creates its own weather, rather than a valley that receives whatever weather others generate. Let me tell you about Margaret, a woman who worked in a toxic office environment where gossip, backstabbing, and chronic complaining were the norm. Most people in this environment became gradually more negative and cynical, their mental atmospheres degrading to match their surroundings. Margaret noticed this happening to herself and decided to resist it through deliberate mental cultivation. Every morning before work, she spent time generating feelings of appreciation, professional excellence, and positive expectation. During the workday, whenever she noticed herself slipping into the office's negative mental atmosphere, she consciously reset her mental state, refusing to join in gossip or complaining, maintaining her own deliberately cultivated mental broadcast regardless of the atmosphere around her. The results were fascinating. Initially, her co-workers found her a bit strange, unable to pull her into their drama and negativity. But over time, people began gravitating toward her, seeking her out for conversations, asking her advice, feeling better after interactions with her without quite knowing why. The mental contagion of her maintained positive mental atmosphere affected everyone she encountered. Eventually, she was promoted to a management position specifically because senior leadership noticed that morale and productivity improved in whatever department she worked in. Margaret hadn't changed anyone else directly. She'd simply maintained her own mental atmosphere so consistently that others unconsciously elevated their own states through mental contagion. The concept of mental imaging gives you another powerful tool for directing mental fascination towards specific outcomes. Your mind thinks in pictures more than words, and vivid mental images carry extraordinary broadcasting power. When you want to influence a situation, create a detailed mental image of the outcome you desire and hold that image in mind with emotional intensity and confident expectation. This isn't daydreaming or fantasy. This is deliberate mental broadcasting of a specific signal that affects probability and influences the unconscious minds of everyone involved in the situation. Athletes have used mental imaging for decades, visualizing perfect performances before competitions. Studies show that mental rehearsal activates the same neural pathways as physical practice, and athletes who combine physical and mental training outperform those who only train physically. But the power of mental imaging extends far beyond athletics. You can use it to prepare for important conversations, visualizing exactly how you want the interaction to unfold. You can use it to influence business outcomes, seeing in detail the successful conclusion of a negotiation or project. You can use it to improve relationships, imagining with feeling the harmonious connection you want to experience. The key to effective mental imaging is detail, emotion, and repetition. Don't just vaguely think about success. See it specifically. If you're preparing for a job interview, visualize the room, the interviewer's faces, their nodding agreement as you answer questions perfectly, the handshake and smile when they offer you the position, the feeling of satisfaction as you walk out knowing you've succeeded. Feel the emotions of that success, as if it's happening now. Your unconscious mind doesn't distinguish between vividly imagined experiences and real ones, so a properly done mental image creates the same neural patterns, emotional states, and mental broadcasts as actually experiencing the event. There was a young man named David who wanted desperately to start his own business but lacked capital, connections, and business experience. By conventional analysis, his chances of success appeared minimal. But David understood mental imaging and used it relentlessly. Every day, he spent time visualizing his business thriving, seeing customers satisfied, picturing his bank account growing, feeling the pride and satisfaction of building something successful. He didn't just wish for these things, he experienced them mentally with such vividness that they felt more real than his current circumstances. Something remarkable began happening. David started noticing opportunities he would have missed before. A casual conversation led to an introduction that became his first major client. Someone mentioned a grant program he'd never heard of, and his application succeeded. A supplier offered unexpectedly generous payment terms. Within 18 months, David's business was generating 6 figures in revenue. He had no more capital, connections, or experience than when he started, but his mental imaging had created such a powerful broadcast of successful entrepreneurship that opportunities and resources aligned around him. People wanted to help him, circumstances arranged themselves favorably, and his mental image progressively manifested as physical reality. The principle of mental demand, applied to specific individuals, requires understanding how to project your mental influence toward a particular person. This technique works especially well when you have a legitimate reason to interact with someone, whether asking for employment, seeking cooperation, proposing a business relationship, or hoping to deepen a personal connection. The process involves focusing your mind clearly on the specific person, visualizing them responding favorably to you, and mentally projecting the demand that they take the action you desire. This might sound like mysticism, but consider what's actually happening. You're aligning your mental broadcast specifically toward another consciousness, and at some level beyond normal awareness, they receive that broadcast. They may think of you suddenly without knowing why. They may feel an impulse to contact you or respond favorably to your proposal. They may find themselves more open to your ideas than they would normally be. You've established a mental connection that influences their unconscious mind, which then influences their conscious thoughts and decisions. The ethics of this deserve consideration. Mental fascination isn't about violating anyone's free will or manipulating people into doing things against their interest. It's about broadcasting your desires clearly and influencing others to recognize the mutual benefit of what you're proposing. If you're using mental demand to help someone hire you for a job you'll excel at, that's beneficial to both parties. If you're using it to sell someone a product that genuinely helps them, everyone wins. If you're using it to repair a relationship through better mutual understanding, the mental influence serves a constructive purpose. The technique becomes problematic only when you attempt to influence others toward outcomes that harm them for your selfish benefit. And in practice, such attempts usually fail because the other person's unconscious mind resists what isn't in their interest. Here's how to practice mental demand toward a specific person. Find a quiet time when you won't be interrupted. Relax your body and calm your mind. Form a clear mental image of the person, seeing their face and presence as vividly as possible. Visualize them in the situation you desire, whether that's offering you a job, agreeing to your proposal, responding warmly to your communication, or whatever outcome you're seeking. Hold this image while generating strong positive emotion, feeling the satisfaction and gratitude of the successful outcome. Then mentally project a clear demand, not as begging or hoping, but as calm, confident expectation. You might form words like "you want to hire me," or "you recognize the value I offer," or "you feel drawn to connect with me," but project these as confident statements of fact, not desperate wishes. Maintain this mental state for several minutes, then release it with complete confidence that your mental broadcast has reached its target. The results often surprise people new to this practice. You might send out a mental demand in the evening, and the next morning the person calls you unexpectedly. You might project mental influence towards someone who's been ignoring your emails, and suddenly they respond. You might mentally demand that someone recognize your value, and in your next interaction they treat you with noticeably more respect and consideration. These aren't coincidences. These are the natural results of focused mental broadcasting toward a specific receiver. A woman named Jennifer used mental demand to transform a difficult professional relationship. Her new manager seemed to have taken an instant dislike to her, criticizing her work unfairly, overlooking her contributions, and generally making her professional life miserable. Jennifer could have fought back through official channels or simply endured the mistreatment, but instead she decided to try mental fascination. Each evening, she spent 10 minutes visualizing her manager seeing her value, recognizing her competence, and treating her with fairness and respect. She mentally projected the demand that their relationship improve, not through confrontation, but through her manager's shifted perception. Within 2 weeks, the manager's attitude began softening. She criticized less frequently. She acknowledged Jennifer's contributions in a team meeting. She asked Jennifer's opinion on a project. Within a month, their relationship had completely transformed, becoming one of mutual respect and even collaboration. The manager later told Jennifer that she didn't know why she'd initially reacted negatively to her, but she was glad they'd gotten past that rough start. Jennifer knew exactly why the shift had occurred. Her sustained mental broadcast had influenced her manager's unconscious mind until it affected her conscious attitudes and behavior. The concept of mental vibration helps explain why mental fascination works at a fundamental level. Everything in the universe is vibration, from the densest matter to the most refined thought. Different rates of vibration create different manifestations, what we call physical objects, sounds, colors, emotions, thoughts. Your mental state creates a specific vibration, and that vibration attracts or repels other vibrations according to the principle of resonance. Like attracts like at the vibrational level. When you maintain a mental vibration of success, you attract people and circumstances vibrating at that same frequency. When you vibrate at the frequency of lack and limitation, you attract more experiences of scarcity. This isn't metaphorical or poetic. This is describing actual energetic reality. Your thoughts and emotions create measurable electromagnetic fields that extend beyond your physical body. Other people's nervous systems detect these fields unconsciously and respond accordingly. Beyond even the electromagnetic effects, consciousness itself appears to operate through mechanisms that allow direct mind-to-mind influence across distance. What used to be called telepathy, but might be better understood as quantum entanglement of consciousness or morphic resonance of mental fields. The practical application is that you must become conscious of what vibration you're habitually broadcasting. Are you vibrating fear or confidence, scarcity or abundance, possibility or limitation, criticism or appreciation? Your habitual vibration determines what you attract into your life far more than your circumstances, education, or connections. Change your vibration, and you change what your life attracts. This is why two people with similar circumstances can have completely different outcomes. One person vibrating lack attracts more difficulty, while another vibrating possibility attracts opportunities. Near the end of our exploration of these transformative principles, let's address the question of how long it takes to develop genuine mental fascination. The honest answer is that you begin seeing results immediately, but mastery develops over time through consistent practice. The first time you consciously control your mental atmosphere, you'll notice people responding differently to you. The first time you successfully use mental demand toward a specific outcome, you'll recognize the technique's power. But developing the consistent strength of mind to maintain your mental broadcast regardless of circumstances, to influence outcomes reliably through mental projection, to create a personal atmosphere so powerful that it transforms every situation you enter, that requires dedication. Think of mental fascination like physical fitness. Someone completely out of shape who starts exercising will feel better immediately and see some results quickly, but developing real strength and endurance takes months of consistent effort. Mental training works the same way. You'll experience immediate benefits from applying these principles, but the full power of mental fascination emerges through daily practice over weeks and months. The good news is that unlike physical training, which requires time and effort indefinitely to maintain results, mental training creates permanent changes in your habitual thought patterns and mental atmosphere. Once you've trained your mind to maintain a powerful, deliberately chosen broadcast, it becomes your new default state. The practice routine for developing mental fascination doesn't need to be complicated or time-consuming. Start each day with 15 minutes of deliberate mental cultivation. Sit quietly, relax your body, and consciously generate the mental state you want to radiate throughout the day. If you want to attract success, feel successful. If you want to improve relationships, feel loving and open. If you want to close important deals, feel confident and valuable. Make this feeling as vivid and real as possible, letting it saturate your consciousness until it feels natural and genuine. Then carry that mental state into your day, noticing when external circumstances or other people's moods try to knock you off center, and consciously returning to your chosen mental atmosphere whenever you drift. Throughout the day, practice mental demand towards specific outcomes. Before important interactions, take a moment to visualize the outcome you desire and project mental influence toward achieving it. After encounters that didn't go as you hoped, use them as training opportunities, reviewing what mental state you were broadcasting and how you could have influenced the situation more effectively. Before sleep, spend another 10 minutes visualizing your major goals as already accomplished, feeling the emotions of success, and broadcasting that mental state into your unconscious mind to work on overnight. Please like and subscribe to Audiobook Library. This simple action genuinely helps the channel grow and reach more people who are searching for the knowledge that can transform their lives. Every person who discovers these principles and applies them creates a ripple effect of positive change in their families, workplaces, and communities. Your support makes that expansion possible. A final story illustrates the comprehensive power of mental fascination when applied consistently. There was a man named Thomas who discovered these principles while in prison, serving a sentence for crimes committed during a period of addiction and desperation. Prison might seem like the worst possible environment to practice mental fascination, surrounded by violence, negativity, and despair. But Thomas had nothing but time and decided to use it, rebuilding his mental atmosphere from the ground up. Every day in his cell, Thomas practiced cultivating a mental state of dignity, purpose, and eventual success. He visualized himself released and thriving, contributing to society, building a life he could be proud of. He consciously refused to absorb the toxic mental atmosphere of prison, maintaining his own deliberate broadcast of constructive purpose, regardless of his surroundings. Other inmates noticed something different about him and began seeking his company and advice. Guards treated him with more respect than they showed other prisoners. When an educational program was offered, Thomas was selected despite many applicants. When Thomas was released, he had no money, no job prospects, a criminal record, and a gap in his employment history. By conventional standards, his chances of building a successful life were minimal. but his mental atmosphere had been so thoroughly transformed through years of practice that he radiated confident purpose and reformed character. His first employer took a chance on him because something about Thomas felt trustworthy despite his record. That job led to better opportunities. Thomas continued his mental practices, consistently broadcasting competence, reliability, and growth. Within 5 years of release, he was managing a team at a respected company. Within 10 years, he'd started his own successful business, focused on helping others with criminal records find employment. Thomas's external circumstances had been terrible, but his mental fascination had transformed his trajectory completely. The ultimate truth about mental fascination is that it returns control of your life to where it belongs, in your own consciousness, rather than in external circumstances. Most people live as victims, believing their success or failure depends on their background, the economy, other people's decisions, luck, timing, or countless factors outside their control. This victim mindset broadcasts powerlessness, and powerlessness attracts more experiences of being controlled by circumstances. Mental fascination reveals that your mind is the primary creative force in your life. Your mental broadcasts determine what you attract, how people respond to you, what opportunities appear, what outcomes manifest. This isn't about denying that external circumstances exist or pretending that everyone has identical advantages. Real obstacles exist. Real systemic barriers exist. Real challenges based on background, identity, and circumstance exist. Mental fascination doesn't erase these realities, but it provides tools to navigate them far more effectively than victim consciousness ever could. Two people facing similar obstacles will have completely different outcomes based on their mental broadcasts. One radiates defeated acceptance of limitation and attracts more evidence of barriers. The other radiates determined creative problem-solving and attracts unexpected pathways through or around the obstacles. Your mind is broadcasting right now. The question isn't whether you're influencing your reality through mental projection. The question is whether you're doing it unconsciously, broadcasting whatever random thoughts and emotions happen to arise, or whether you're taking conscious control, deliberately cultivating and projecting the mental states that serve your highest purposes. The difference between these two approaches is the difference between drifting wherever currents take you and steering powerfully toward chosen destinations. Every master of achievement, every person who's built something significant, every individual who's overcome serious obstacles to create remarkable success, has used these principles whether they knew the terminology or not. They maintained mental states of possibility when circumstances screamed impossibility. They broadcast confidence when they had every reason to doubt. They projected mental demands toward outcomes that seemed unlikely. They cultivated mental atmospheres that attracted the people and resources they needed. They didn't wait for permission or perfect circumstances. They used their minds as the creative tools they are, shaping reality through the invisible but immensely powerful force of directed consciousness. You have this same power, not theoretically, not someday in the future after you've learned more or become more worthy, but right now, in this moment. The mental broadcasts you send out today are affecting your reality today. The mental atmosphere you create around yourself today is influencing how people treat you today. The mental demands you project toward desired outcomes today are working on the unconscious minds of the people involved today. Mental fascination isn't something you have to earn or qualify for. It's your birthright as a conscious being, a tool you've always possessed but perhaps never learned to use deliberately. The choice before you is simple but profound. You can continue living as you have been, allowing your mental broadcasts to be determined by circumstances, other people's opinions, habitual fears, and unconscious patterns. This path leads wherever it leads, maybe to adequate results, maybe to chronic dissatisfaction, probably to a sense of unfulfilled potential. Or you can begin today, right now, taking conscious control of your mental atmosphere, deliberately cultivating the states you want to radiate, practicing mental projection towards specific outcomes, training your mind to maintain powerful broadcasts regardless of external circumstances. This path leads to progressively increasing influence, growing magnetism, expanding success, and the deep satisfaction of living as a conscious creator rather than an unconscious reactor. The techniques are simple, accessible to anyone willing to practice. The results are limited only by the consistency and clarity of your application. Start with your morning mental cultivation, establishing the atmosphere you want to radiate throughout the day. Practice mental demand toward specific outcomes you desire. Notice when you drift into unconscious negative broadcasting and consciously reset your mental state. Visualize your major goals with emotional intensity and confident expectation. Refuse to absorb toxic mental atmospheres from your environment, maintaining your own deliberately chosen broadcast regardless of surrounding negativity. Observe how people respond differently to you as your mental fascination develops. Notice opportunities appearing that weren't visible before. Feel the increasing sense of power and possibility that comes from recognizing yourself as a conscious creator of your experience. Some of you listening to these ideas are feeling excitement and recognition, sensing that this explains mysteries you've observed but never understood, eager to begin applying these principles immediately. Others are feeling skepticism, wondering if this could really work or if it's just wishful thinking dressed up in impressive language. Both responses are natural. Let me address the skeptics directly and respectfully. You don't have to believe these principles for them to work. You just have to test them honestly. Try maintaining a deliberately positive mental atmosphere for 1 week and observe how people respond to you differently. Try using mental demand before one important interaction and notice whether the outcome shifts. Try visualizing a specific desired result with emotional intensity for 10 minutes daily for 2 weeks and see what happens. Real experiments produce observable results. If mental fascination is nonsense, your experiments will show that. If it's valid, your experiments will demonstrate its power. Either way, you'll know from direct experience rather than speculation. The person you're capable of becoming through developing mental fascination is someone you'd barely recognize from your current vantage point. Imagine moving through the world, radiating such powerful confidence and positive expectation that opportunities appear everywhere. Imagine influencing situations through mental projection so effectively that important outcomes consistently align with your intentions. Imagine creating such a magnetic mental atmosphere that people feel drawn to help you, connect with you, support your endeavors. Imagine the freedom of knowing that your success doesn't depend on circumstances beyond your control, but on your own mental mastery, which you can develop indefinitely. This isn't fantasy. This is the documented reality of everyone who's seriously practiced these principles. William Walker Atkinson wrote Mental Fascination over a century ago, but the principles he revealed are timeless because they're based on the fundamental nature of consciousness and its relationship to reality. The specific examples and language might feel dated, but the core truths are as relevant today as when he discovered them. Perhaps more so in our current world, where mental influence through media and technology has made everyone more aware of how consciousness shapes perception and behavior. The person who masters their own mental broadcasts in today's world has advantages previous generations couldn't imagine, because the multiplier effects of mental influence are greater when combined with modern communication and connection. Think about what's possible when you combine strong mental fascination with contemporary tools. Your mental atmosphere affects how you present yourself online, influencing whether people engage with your content or ignore it. Your mental projection toward desired outcomes amplifies through networks that can connect you with exactly the people and resources you need anywhere in the world. Your consciously cultivated mental vibration attracts opportunities through channels that didn't exist a generation ago. The fundamentals Atkinson taught remain valid, but their application in the modern world can produce results faster and more dramatically than ever before. As we approach the conclusion of this exploration, let's address one crucial misconception that stops many people from fully embracing mental fascination. Some worry that consciously influencing others through mental projection is manipulative or unethical. This concern comes from a misunderstanding of both the technique and the ethics involved. First, understand that you're already influencing others constantly through your mental broadcasts, whether you do it consciously or not. The question isn't whether to influence, but how to do it effectively and constructively. Second, mental fascination works best when it serves mutual benefit. Attempting to influence others toward outcomes that harm them typically fails because their unconscious resistance blocks your mental demands. The technique naturally guides you toward win-win outcomes because those are what manifest most readily. Think about the ethics of walking into a job interview broadcasting anxiety and incompetence versus broadcasting calm, confidence, and capability. Is it more honest to radiate your fears or to consciously project the best version of yourself? Is it manipulation to influence the interviewer to see your genuine value, or is it simply effective communication at mental and emotional levels? Most of what we call manipulation involves deception, pretending to be something you're not for selfish gain. Mental fascination involves broadcasting what's genuinely true about your capabilities and value, just doing it consciously and powerfully rather than accidentally and weakly. The same ethical clarity applies to all applications of mental fascination. Using it to help someone recognize how your product benefits them isn't manipulation, it's effective sales. Using it to help a resistant friend see the value of reconciliation isn't manipulation, it's constructive relationship building. Using it to help an employer recognize your qualifications isn't manipulation, it's presenting yourself effectively. The technique becomes ethically questionable only when you attempt to influence others against their genuine interests for your selfish benefit, and as noted, such attempts usually fail anyway. Please check our channel's complete video library, where you'll find summaries of other transformative books that complement and expand on these principles of mental fascination. Each video offers practical wisdom from masters who've discovered different aspects of consciousness, influence, and personal power. Together, these teachings create a comprehensive education in living as a conscious creator rather than an unconscious victim of circumstances. The transformation available through mental fascination isn't limited to external achievements like career success or financial gains, though those certainly improve when you master these principles. The deeper transformation happens in how you experience life itself. Instead of feeling anxious about outcomes you can't control, you feel confident in your ability to influence situations mentally. Instead of feeling powerless in the face of other people's moods and opinions, you maintain your own mental atmosphere regardless of external pressures. Instead of feeling like circumstances happen to you randomly, you recognize yourself as an active creative force, shaping your reality through directed consciousness. This shift in self-perception, from victim to creator, from powerless to influential, from reactive to proactive, changes everything about how life feels. Consider also how mental fascination improves your relationship with yourself. Most people are at war internally. their conscious desires contradicted by unconscious fears and limitations, their stated goals undermined by habitual negative broadcasts, their highest aspirations sabotaged by mental atmospheres of doubt and unworthiness. Developing mental fascination requires bringing all aspects of yourself into alignment, your conscious and unconscious minds working together, your thoughts and emotions broadcasting the same signal, your self-image supporting rather than contradicting your goals. This internal integration creates a sense of personal power and coherence that affects everything else positively. The practice of mental cultivation also tends to reveal and clear old traumas, limiting beliefs, and unconscious patterns that have been running your life from the shadows. When you start consciously choosing your mental broadcasts, you become aware of the automatic patterns that contradict your intentions. A person trying to broadcast confidence discovers their habitual self-criticism. Someone attempting to radiate abundance notices their deep assumptions about scarcity. Someone working to project loving openness confronts their defensive barriers and trust issues. This awareness is uncomfortable but invaluable because you can't change patterns you don't recognize. Mental fascination practice naturally brings unconscious material into conscious awareness, where you can work with it, question it, and replace it with more constructive patterns. There's a compound effect to mental fascination that makes it increasingly powerful over time. Your first successes with mental projection build your confidence, which strengthens your subsequent mental broadcasts. Stronger broadcasts produce better results, which further increases your confidence and skill. This virtuous cycle means that people who practice these principles consistently often report that results come more quickly and dramatically the longer they practice. What took weeks to manifest in the beginning happens in days after months of practice. What seemed like remarkable coincidences at first become normal expected outcomes. The mental muscles you're developing grow stronger with use, just like physical muscles, and that increasing strength translates to increasing influence. Imagine yourself 5 years from now, having practiced mental fascination consistently during that time. Think about how different your mental atmosphere will be, how automatically you'll maintain powerful positive broadcasts, how natural it will feel to influence situations through mental projection, how much stronger your manifestation abilities will have become. Consider the accumulated results of 5 years of conscious mental creation rather than unconscious mental chaos. The person you could become seems almost unrecognizable from who you are now, but that transformation is absolutely achievable through consistent application of these principles. Every master of mental fascination started exactly where you are now, perhaps even with greater obstacles and disadvantages, and reached extraordinary levels of influence through nothing more mysterious than daily practice. The world needs people who have developed mental fascination because such people become centers of positive influence in their communities. When you maintain a powerful mental atmosphere of possibility and purpose, you affect everyone around you through mental contagion, elevating their states, inspiring their efforts, reminding them of their own potential. When you demonstrate what's possible through conscious mental creation, you give others permission to attempt the same. When you refuse to absorb and broadcast the toxic mental atmospheres of fear, division, and limitation that dominate so much of contemporary culture, you create islands of sanity and possibility that others can refuge in and learn from. This isn't about becoming a guru or teacher unless that's your calling. It's simply about recognizing that your mental broadcasts affect your environment constantly and choosing to make that influence constructive. A parent who practices mental fascination raises children in an atmosphere of possibility rather than limitation. A leader who masters these principles creates organizational cultures where people thrive. A friend who maintains powerful mental atmospheres helps their entire social circle elevate their thinking and expectations. You don't have to announce what you're doing or try to teach others explicitly. Just maintain your own mental broadcasts consciously and powerfully, and your influence automatically extends to everyone you encounter. The ultimate freedom that mental fascination provides is liberation from the victim mentality that imprisons most people in cycles of complaint, blame, and powerlessness. When you genuinely understand that your mental broadcasts create your experienced reality more than your circumstances do, you stop waiting for the world to change and start changing your mental atmosphere. When you recognize that you can influence outcomes through directed mental projection, you stop feeling helpless in the face of obstacles. When you develop the ability to maintain your chosen mental state regardless of external pressures, you stop giving your power away to circumstances, other people's opinions, or negative events you can't control. This freedom doesn't mean you become indifferent to injustice or resigned to problems. It means you approach challenges from a position of mental power rather than mental weakness, from creative possibility rather than defeated acceptance, from conscious influence rather than unconscious reaction. The person with developed mental fascination sees obstacles as opportunities to practice mental projection toward solutions. They encounter resistance as an invitation to broadcast more powerful mental atmospheres. They face setbacks as training that strengthens their ability to maintain chosen mental states despite circumstances. Everything becomes useful, nothing is wasted, all experience contributes to increasing mastery. Your journey with mental fascination begins the moment you decide to take conscious control of your mental broadcasts. You don't need permission, special circumstances, or perfect conditions. You just need to start, today, now, with whatever level of skill and understanding you currently possess. Begin noticing your habitual mental atmosphere. Start consciously cultivating the states you want to radiate. Practice mental demand toward small outcomes to build your confidence and skill. Observe how people respond differently as your mental broadcasts become more intentional and powerful. Notice opportunities appearing that you would have missed with weaker mental influence. Feel the growing sense of personal power that comes from living as a conscious creator. The principles William Walker Atkinson revealed in Mental Fascination aren't complicated esoteric secrets requiring years of study to grasp. They're simple, practical techniques for directing the mental power you already possess toward outcomes you genuinely desire. The challenge isn't understanding the principles, it's maintaining the discipline to practice them consistently until they become your natural way of operating. Most people will read or hear this information, feel excited momentarily, perhaps try a technique once or twice, then drift back into unconscious mental habits. The small minority who actually practice daily, who maintain their mental cultivation regardless of whether results appear immediately, who persist through doubts and setbacks until mastery develops, these are the people who transform their lives completely and join the ranks of those who consciously create their realities. Which group will you belong to? The decision is yours and yours alone, and it's a decision you make fresh each day through your choice to practice or not practice, to maintain conscious mental broadcasts or drift into automatic patterns, to project deliberate mental influence, or leave your mental power unused. No one can do this work for you, and no external circumstance can prevent you from doing it if you're committed. Your mind is yours to direct, and that sovereignty is absolute regardless of what else you control or don't control in your life. Everything you've learned here today becomes worthless without application, but everything transforms through consistent practice. Take these principles seriously enough to test them honestly. Give them the gift of sustained effort and attention. Treat your mental development with the same dedication you'd apply to any valuable skill you wanted to master. The results will speak for themselves, and months from now you'll look back amazed at how different your life has become through nothing more than learning to consciously direct the mental power that was always yours. Please check our library of videos, where dozens of other transformative teachings await you, each offering another piece of the puzzle of conscious living and deliberate creation. Subscribe so you don't miss new content as it arrives. Share these ideas with others who are ready for them. Be part of spreading knowledge that actually empowers people to change their lives rather than keeping them dependent on external saviors. You are far more powerful than you've been taught to believe. Your mind is a broadcasting station of immense influence. Your mental atmosphere creates the reality you experience. Your conscious thoughts, emotions, and projections shape outcomes that others attribute to luck or circumstance. Everything you truly want is available to you when you learn to align your mental broadcasts with your conscious desires, when you master the art of mental fascination and use it to create the life you're capable of living. That mastery begins now with your decision to practice, to persist, to develop your mental powers until they serve your highest purposes. The knowledge is yours. The power is yours. The choice is yours. Make it count.